45, I fell in love, said yes within a month, and never looked back. Welcome to the open draft. Today I'm trying something a little different. I want to be in this cozy little corner with you and read you one of my most popular posts that I've written. It's not even about the love story, it's about timelines and what I've learned about living authentically. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read it to you and then we can chat about it. So I didn't find love because I was still hopeful. I actually fell in love because I released the need for it to happen. Yes, you heard that right. So I find when you're trying to cling on to something, and for so many years, all I wanted was to find my person, when I actually released that and I became my person for myself, that's when I found love. And that's how it happens. It wasn't a cinematic moment. It was actually love in the time of COVID. Not very easy to do. And I received a direct message on Instagram from a man I hadn't seen in 3 decades. We'd actually gone to high school together and then lost contact. Messy hair, poor lighting, and video calls across continents. And within less than a month, I accepted his marriage proposal. And this was at 45 with no second thoughts. But there's an important detail that everyone overlooks in my story. And for years, I was living on borrowed timelines, not on my own. I was living on the timelines of thinking by 30, you should be married. By 35, you should have kids. And by 40, you should definitely have it figured out. Well, I had none of those things figured out. I actually had no idea where my life was going by the time I turned 40. And I kept thinking that I'm behind. And that's the worst thing you can actually feel. And I think that society provides a timetable and you end up racing to catch up or apologizing for being behind. So I struggled to keep pace. In my 20s and 30s, I was in relationships that probably looked good on paper and everyone was going, oh, well, that will do, that's acceptable. But really, I wasn't feeling anything within me. And inside my longest relationship, I definitely faded away. I didn't even know who I was in the end. And it happened in whispers. It wasn't in anything loud. It was quiet. It was through negative comments about my cooking, and I loved cooking. But in the end, I started feeling very insecure, like, can I even cook? It was in pinching my waist where I had like extra rolls and I started feeling like, oh, wow, I'm not in good shape. I'm too much. And also in phone calls saying, oh, where are you? When I was out with friends on lunch dates, starting to feel like my liberty was temporary. And honestly, I became a master of illusions. Carefully calculated smiles and constrained authenticity. A life designed to calm, not awaken. But during the quiet nights and the stillness in the middle of the night, and that's why I like the term midnight stories, because I think that's when you're the most honest, I started hearing this like rustling, like, you know, when you hear leaves rustling, but it was all happening in my mind. And it started with a whisper that this is not it. And I realized that I actually have to get out. And I didn't exit this relationship silently because he actually wouldn't allow that. I left in a storm and of shouting and cursing, and my voice was actually raw from years of saying yes when I meant no. Doors slammed behind me, anger rose and surged from both sides, and I didn't feel like I walked away. I feel like I fought my way out. It was neither noble nor tidy, and sometimes it's just like that, it's messy. I left that relationship like someone trying to escape a burning building, singed yet still alive. I had no idea what safety meant, only that I didn't have it. And that was my first genuine decision. Not a graceful awakening, but a tumultuous exit. And then came the quiet years. I remained single for a long time. And people were curious. People are always curious when you start getting to 40 and you're not single, and when you're single and you haven't been married and you don't have kids, people start asking questions and they start getting concerned for you and start making assumptions as well. And I learned to respond with a smile that shut down all their questions. But truly, I was crafting a life for myself, and I began with my well-being. I took walks, I practiced yoga, and I wrote in public. I created blogs that fizzled out, and I made these silly little videos online every day of my health journey. And I wasn't waiting, I was really living, but at the time I had no idea what I was doing. And that's when my future husband slid into my DMs. I'd met him 30 years ago in a tiny village, and we had lost contact. And then 3 decades later, when I'm making my silly videos about my health journey, he slid into my DMs. First it was an emoji, then a comment, and then a how are you? And conversations that unfolded over days and then weeks and then months turned into video calls that lasted for 1.5 years before I saw him for the first time. And you know what? I had stopped believing love needed to be earned through perfection. I had released the need to shrink myself or mask my true feelings just to win someone's affection. I didn't seek a savior. I merely wished to be acknowledged. And here's what transformed everything. I abandoned the societal clock and embraced my own. The world dictates find a partner by 30, have children by 35, and get your life in order by 40. Your path declares become whole first, choose yourself first, and live your truth first. Love doesn't manifest when demanded, and that's an important thing. It appears when you're done performing, when you've cultivated a life worth of sharing and not proving. Sometimes it arrives 30 years late, through your DMs, ready to hold your hand at the airport. We didn't acquire everything we longed for. We dreamed of having a child together. That chapter was closed. And some evenings we do sit together and we feel emotional about it, like imagining this imaginary child that we could have had. But what we did gain, a passport stamped, dog dreaming, slow morning kind of love. The kind you don't need to justify to anyone, you simply live it. And perhaps you're in a similar place. Maybe you've come to terms with never. Perhaps the world has fallen silent around your aspirations. Don't fall back into waiting. Instead, keep living for yourself. Stop feeling sorry for being out of sync. There's no timeline. There's only your life awaiting your embrace. The woman who prioritizes herself doesn't need to be chosen. She doesn't shrink to fit. And she doesn't perform for love or validation to secure a spot at someone else's table. She builds her own table, and the right people will gravitate towards it. Your journey isn't littered with deadlines. It's brimming with possibilities. What will you do with it?